You ever notice this time of year how it feels like someone hit fast forward on the daylight? It's like 1 minute it's still summer, and then bam, I'm blinking at the sunset over my afternoon coffee. Like today, September 18th. Crazy, right? Make me wonder, why do the days shrink and stretch like an accordion all year round? Well, you and I are going to find out.
It's one of those everyday mysteries, isn't it? We just kind of take it for granted. But the science behind it, it's actually really fascinating when you dig into it.
See, I can already tell this is going to be good. Especially because, get this, we're diving into a blog post for this deep dive, and the title practically made me laugh out loud. Ready for it. Sheep, Sparrows, and Copernicus.
Yeah, I'll admit, that's not your typical science headline. Definitely piqued my interest.
Right. And don't worry, the Copernicus part, that'll make total sense later on. But first, let's set the stage. This blog post, it comes from Luis Azevedo Rodrigues. He's a Portuguese paleontologist. But here's the thing. He's also got this knack for storytelling.
A paleontologist who's a gifted communicator, that's a rare find.
Tell me about it. It's like unearthing a dinosaur fossil, but this one, it can explain itself. Anyway, Rodrigues, he starts with this charming little anecdote about his grandmother, Rosa. It seems she was just full of these old Portuguese proverbs, like little nuggets of wisdom passed down through generations. And one in particular really caught his eye as a scientist.
Okay, I'm all ears. What did this wise grandmother have to say about the days getting shorter and longer?
Okay, so get this. She used to say, Pelo Natal, salto de pardal, em janeiro, salto de carneiro. Which, if you translate it, roughly means,
by Christmas, a sparrow's leap. In January, a ram's leap. Hold on, I've heard that saying before.
Wait, seriously, you have? I thought it was like an old Portuguese thing. That's wild. It just goes to show this whole daylight thing, it's a universal observation. People have been noticing it for, well, who knows how long. It really is amazing when you think about it, this little proverb, passed down for who knows how many generations. It's capturing something real about how daylight changes. But back to the saying itself. Rodrigues explains what it means, basically. It refers to how much the daylight increases from Christmas to January.
Ah, okay, I see. It's like that post-holiday slump we all get hit with, right? Short days, back to the grind, maybe a little less festive cheer going around, Christmas, it's like this tiny little hop forward in daylight, like just a sparrow's leap. But then January rolls around and bam! Suddenly the days feel so much longer, like a ram taking this big leap towards spring.
Exactly. And that's what got Rodrigues' scientist brain churning. He's thinking, is this all in our heads? Or is there something really different about how daylight changes between those 2 months?
Such a good question. We've all felt that. But is it, objectively true?
Right. Like, can Grandmother Rosa's proverb stand up to, actual science? Well, Rodrigues, he digs into the nitty-gritty. And this is where it gets really cool. He starts by, acknowledging the obvious. Yep, days get shorter and longer throughout the year. We all know that basic stuff. But then he throws in this curveball.
Ooh, I love a good curveball. What is it? What's he saying?
So it's not like some perfectly predictable clock, right? It's not just adding and subtracting the same chunk of daylight every single day. Rodrigues says there are these two big players that really mess with that simple equation. And get this, he uses the best analogy. A wonky carousel.
Okay, a wonky carousel. You've got my attention. Keep going.
All right, so picture this. You're on a carousel, right? But this isn't your average, perfectly balanced carnival ride, okay? This one's a little off. First of all, it's tilted, like someone forgot to level it or something. And then, to make things even weirder, the whole thing's not centered right. It's all off kilter.
All right, I'm picturing it, this delightfully lopsided carousel. What does it have to do with the Earth and, the days getting shorter and longer?
Everything. Because those two little quirks, the tilt and the off-center spin, that's basically how our planet moves around the sun. That tilt you're picturing, that's Earth's axial tilt. Fancy way of saying our planet is tilted on its axis at about 23.5 degrees.
And that tilt, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners know, is a huge deal. It's the main reason why we experience seasons here on Earth.
Right. It's like if you're on that tilted carousel, you're closer to the sun at certain points as it spins. So depending on where you're standing on that tilt, you're going to get blasted with more direct sunlight sometimes, less other times, just like summer and winter.
Exactly. It all comes down to the angle of the sunlight hitting us. When our hemisphere is tilted towards the sun, we get these longer, more direct rays. Hello, summer sunshine. But when we're tilted away, those rays, they hit us at a slant. It's like if you think about using a flashlight, right?
Yeah.
Shining it straight on versus at an angle, the light's more spread out, less intense. That's winter.
Okay, so the tilt explains the seasons. Got it. But what about that off-center spin you mentioned? What's that all about? And how does this all tie back to Grandmother Rosa's proverb with the sparrows leap and the rams leap and all that?
Don't worry, we're getting there. That off-center spin, that represents Earth's elliptical orbit. See, we often picture our planet circling the sun in this perfect circle, but in reality, it's more like a slightly squashed circle, an ellipse. Which means at certain points in our orbit, we're closer to the sun. And at other points, well, we're a bit further away.
So we're not just spinning, we're also kind of like wobbling closer and further from the sun as we go.
You got it. And here's where it gets really interesting in relation to Grandmother Rosa's proverb. Around December and January, when she observed those sparrows leap short days, we're actually closest to the sun in our elliptical orbit.
Wait, hold on, for real. We're closest to the sun during winter. That seems completely backwards.
It does, doesn't it? But remember, it's not just about distance. It's about that tilt. Even though we're physically closer to the sun during part of winter, our hemisphere is tilted away, so we're getting less direct sunlight. Hence, the shorter days.
It's like we're huddled up right next to the fireplace, but we're facing away. So we're not getting any of the warmth, even though we're right there.
Exactly. Now think about those leaps again, the sparrow and the ram. Here's the thing about this whole wonky carousel ride. The speed, it's not constant. When we're closer to the sun on that elliptical path, we actually move faster. Like gravity's giving us a little cosmic push.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you. So faster movement when we're closer to the sun. How did that play into the proverb?
Well, it means the rate at which daylight changes, it's not the same throughout the year. Those shifts in speed, plus our tilt, they mean the days actually do lengthen faster after the winter solstice, right around January, just like Grandmother Rosa's proverb says.
That's wild. This simple little saying, passed down for who knows how long, and it's nailing this really complex detail about how the Earth moves, makes you wonder, what other hidden wisdom is tucked away in all those old sayings we hear?
Right. It reminds us that humans, we've always been paying attention to the natural world. Long before we had scientific instruments and fancy equations, we had stories, observations, proverbs, all passed down through generations. And a lot of times, those traditions have this deep understanding of our planet baked into them.
Makes you want to go on a mission to unpack every old wives' tale, see what kind of truth is hiding inside.
Exactly. You know, that's what I love about Rodrigues' blog post. He doesn't just dismiss his grandmother's proverb as some old folklore. He uses it as a starting point to explore the science and ends up honoring both ways of knowing.
It's like he's saying science and tradition, they're not at odds with each other. They can both be true.
Exactly. And that brings us to Copernicus, the final piece of our puzzle. Rodrigues ends by comparing his grandmother's wisdom, rooted in her experience of the seasons changing, with Copernicus' revolutionary view of Earth's place in everything.
Right, Copernicus, the guy who put the sun at the center of the solar system.
Yeah.
Instead of the Earth.
Exactly. He totally changed our perspective. Grandmother Rosa's proverb, it reflects this understanding of our planet up close. And then Copernicus pulls back, shows us Earth in this grand cosmic dance.
It's like zooming out to see the whole incredible ballet, not just our little spin on the stage.
Perfectly put. And that's the beauty of knowledge, right? It's not about picking one perspective over another. It's about embracing all these different ways of understanding the universe.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive into why the days get shorter and longer, what's the takeaway for our listeners? What do we want them thinking about?
Well, besides appreciating the wisdom of Portuguese grandmothers, I think the biggest thing is curiosity can lead to some really amazing connections. A simple question like, why are the days shorter in winter? It can unlock these amazing insights about the Earth, about tradition, even our place in the grand scheme of things. It's a good reminder to never stop asking questions, never stop exploring, and always look for the wonder in the everyday.
Beautifully said. And hey, listener, if this deep dive sparked your curiosity, well, maybe it's time for you to go on an adventure of your own. What everyday mysteries have you been wondering about? The answers might be closer or farther out there than you think.